Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Hope you guys are doing well. Today is March the 25th. It is a Wednesday today. Overall markets, as you can see, a little bit of a pop in the after hours. And currently here in the pre-market, as you can see, we're just kind of nicely pushing towards the upside. We are above our previous day high. So really, coming into market open, as you can see, right, a lot of these moves still happening in the after hours, of course. 1 5-minute candle, which is kind of funny in the after hours, bigger range than the full New York session. We'll talk about the levels, of course, coming into today and the game plan moving forward. Before we do that, what's up, everyone? Good morning. Good morning, Victor. Good morning, Marcus, Cody, Maria, B. Roots, Hosman, Robert, 50, Martin, Cinna, Knight. Good morning, Lamit. Good morning, Juan, Deuce, P1. Yeah, what's up, everyone? Good morning. Hope you guys are doing well. Alrighty, let's bring up the economic calendar. As for some of the news events that we have coming into today, let me pull this up. Not too much news that happened overnight. The main thing was we had that pop, of course, in the after hours. That's what kind of moved the market. We have a couple other names moving here as well, some earnings names. We have some of the semis moving up nicely here in the pre-market as well. ARM, nice pop. We have Intel. We have a couple of these semiconductors. AMD is also breaking out here. So we'll talk about all these names. With that being said, for the economic calendar, not really too much is on the economic calendar. As for the red folder news event tomorrow, we do have some unemployment claims at 8:30. We have an orange folder news event later into today with President Trump speaking. That is going to be after the market closes. And then on Friday, we do have that revised consumer sentiment, which is at 10 a.m. on Friday. Sorry. So with that being said, let's hop right into the charts to see exactly what we're looking for coming into this morning. Starting off on the ES. So as you can see here for the ES, yesterday we kind of opened up at the bottom of the range. We end up having a nice little reaction right off the bat with the Qs, not quite filled our full gap that we had created. We'll kind of talk about the QQQ, which we had that full gap fill. And then as you can see, we just kind of consolidated around this general area. And then we end up having a nice pop here in the after hours. And then currently in the pre-market, we're gravitating up and towards our 6680. So this is our key level that we have drawn out from Monday. And now you can see we're already back at our higher time frame point of interest. So coming into market open here today, what we like to see, of course, is the reaction that we have off our Monday's highs. If we do want to see some upside in this case, above our Monday's highs, potential continuation up and towards our key level that we had, which was our news candle high on Monday for any sort of continuation towards the upside. Another possible scenario, of course, if we do reject off this area, we could be looking for the bounce play all the way back off our 6620 here on the higher time frames. Currently, as you can see, a lot of the times, right, the New York session open has been fairly, right, there hasn't been too much volatility. A lot of the moves have been happening in the after hours or in the pre-market. You can see yesterday, as I mentioned, nice pop in the after hours. This one single candle in the after hours was more than the whole New York session open range. So for the ES coming into market open here today, let's keep an eye out on our key levels. In this case, it's our after hours highs along with our Monday's highs. Very much well could see this pop and fade for this push right back down in towards our previous day close, which will have another gap here on the charts. Now let's go on to the SPY chart. As you can see, we have a couple gaps. Let's go on to the regular trading hours. You can see we have a couple gaps here on the charts. We had this gap that we created over the weekend. Not quite filled the full gap, came very close to that full gap fill. We end up filling that full gap on the QQQ. As for the SPY, not quite filled that full gap. We end up pushing back up and towards the gap fill that we created yesterday. Filled that gap, and as you can see, another day where we have a pretty big gap towards the upside. So a lot of these gap ups and gap downs in the overall markets. Now we're about to gap up into a key level of resistance, which is our 662 coming into market open. So if we go back on to the hourly time frame, very key level here for the SPY coming to market open, 662. As you can see here, multiple touches. multiple touches. We have our previous level of support now turning into resistance. If we do want to see any sort of continuation lower, potential pop and fade here off our 662 for a push right back down in towards that 654. So this is what we have for the SPY coming to market open. As I mentioned, we do have a gap up into a key level of resistance. If we do want to reject off our 662, we can see this push right back down in towards that 654. If we go back onto lower time frames here now, this is going to be the exact level, as I mentioned, our Monday's highs for a potential pop and fade towards the downside, right back down in towards that 654. If we are looking for upside today, upside is in play above our 662, but as I mentioned, already up 1% here. This one is going to be a lot more difficult since we have a pretty big move in the after hours along with the pre-market. If you do want to see others long positions, potential gap fill, reversal, which would be all the way off our previous level of support, which now in this case is our 654. So longs are going to be a little bit more difficult today, especially in the New York session open, since we already had a nice push towards the upside. We can be looking for longs above your Monday's highs, but with this big push already, we're going to have to be a lot more cautious and potentially this this potential reversal here off our Monday's highs is in play for a push right back towards the downside. So keep that in mind for the SPY coming into market open. If we now go on to the NQ chart, key levels that we have marked out coming into today, of course, is going to be that 24,350 along with our 24,650. Currently, as you can see for the NQ, yesterday we actually ended up coming back down in towards our gap fill here on the higher time frames. I'll go into the QQQ here in a second. As for the Qs, what we like to see here is the reaction that we have off our Monday's highs. So far you can see we're reclaiming back above this level. It's not the cleanest, but we're reclaiming back above. Next level here on the higher time frames is going to be our high that we created here yesterday, and of course our higher time frame key level, which is our 24,650. So if we do want to see some upside here on the markets, either the bounce play here off our 24,400, or now in this case it's going to be above our 24,650 for any sort of continuation higher. If we are interested in a pop and fade, the pop and fade for the ES is going to be key. As you can see, the NQ is lagging behind the ES, which is not really a good sign for upside. A lot of times you like to see the NQ be the leader towards the highs, whereas whenever the NQ is lagging behind the SPY, it's usually not a good sign for continuation in the overall markets. As for the NQ, potential pop and fade here is in play off our Monday's highs for this reversal trade back towards our previous day close. So this is what we have for the NQ coming into market open. If we go on to the QQQ, very similar levels. As you can see for the Qs, what we had here was our gap. So we had a couple gaps created on the QQQ, gap up that we created over the weekend. We had another mini gap down. So you can see overall market gap down, came down in towards the low of the gap, basically filled the gap here, and then you can see came back up, filled the gap that we created yesterday, and now we're having another gap up in the markets about 1% here. So for the Qs coming to market open, another gap up towards the upside. If we do want to see any sort of shorts, as I mentioned, potential kind of pop and fade off our 595 for this gap fill kind of reversal trade all the way back down in towards our 587 and potentially that previous day close. So if we zoom out here on the higher time frames, also another key level of resistance here as well, which is just basically our 595. As you can see, multiple touches here. So 595, previous level of support. Touch here, also the level that we broke down from. If we do want to see some continued downside moving forward, maintain underneath this 595. Of course, if we do flip back above, right, then we're going to lean a little bit more bullish on the hourly time frame. So key level today, as I mentioned, is going to be this 595 here on the higher time frames, and that's something to keep an eye out for. We are a little bit farther away from our 595 along with this 587. So other levels that we can just have marked out, we can kind of just mark out this pre-market high along with our after hours highs as well. You can kind of use this as a general rule of thumb for today. just to keep this in mind, right? Kind of equilibrium in between our 595 along with our 587. So coming to market open, as I mentioned, if we do want to see some upside, right, either the bounce play off our previous day highs for continuation towards the upside. In this case, above our after hours highs for a push towards the upside is in play here as well, up into this 595. Only way I'm interested in shorts is going to be the pop and fade off for 595 for this continued pushback towards the downside, or if we have this sharp rejection off our pre-market highs, we could be looking for this trade back down in towards that previous day highs, 588. So this is what I have for the SPY and Qs coming into market open here. Now let's go on to some tech names that we do have. Before we do that, let's go on to the semiconductor ETF. The semis moving nicely here in the pre-market. And we'll kind of talk about some other names here in a second. But if you guys do have any charts or any tickers, you guys can now drop them in the chat. If you guys are enjoying this so far, I appreciate if you guys drop a like. If you guys haven't joined the free daily watch list, that of course is in the description below here as well. Okay, first things first, let's go on to the semiconductor ETF, which is the SMH. As you can see, overall, higher time frame still holding up very nicely. We kind of talked about this yesterday. We're kind of ranging in between key levels, which is our 380 along with our 404, but nice kind of bounce off the lows. And I can see higher lows are being built up and we're gravitating up and towards the top of the range here. So for the SMH, what we like to see here now is, as I mentioned, the break above our 404 for continuation towards the upside. If we reject off this 404, which we've done multiple times, we can see a little bit of a pullback here on the SMH and a push down in towards the key level, which in this case is our 396. So for the SMH, right, as I mentioned, keep an eye out on our 404, or sorry, our 402. If we do reject off this level, we can see a push right back down in towards our 396 and the gap fill that we have created. But so far you can see gap up here in the after hours, nice push up in the pre-market in towards a key level of resistance. Now we like to see, right, the general reaction that we have off our 402. As for the IWM, nice little bounce here as well. If you're looking at this on the hourly time frame, a lot of these names we're going to have to, right, get back above this news candle high here on Monday if we want to see any sort of continuation towards the upside, right? If we reject off this area, we're just going to come right back down in towards the middle of the range, right? Similar thing here on the SPY and the Qs, right? Qs would have to get above this news candle high, right? For the SPY, similar thing would have to get above this news candle high. Currently, we are coming up into a key level of resistance, as I mentioned. But now let's go on to some tech names that we do have, starting off with Tesla. So Tesla is currently bouncing off our key level of support, which happens to be that 360. So I talked about this last week. I also talked about this a couple of days ago. Now, as you can see for Tesla, we are reclaiming back above this 383 here. So you can see multiple levels of support. Broke underneath it. Now we're trying to reclaim back above this level. So for Tesla, right, number one, we have this gap fill back towards the upside. Number two, now, if we can flip back above, we can be looking for this reversal trade on Tesla back towards the highs. We also have this kind of mini downtrend break here as well. So what we personally like to see on Tesla is, right, the break, fill the gap, come back down to retest this 380 and potential reversal back towards the highs. Let's go back onto the lower time frames here now as well. So for Tesla, as I mentioned, key levels that we have marked out today is going to be that full gap fill, which in this case is that 392. So far, you can see a little bit of touch here in the pre-market. But as for Tesla, if we do want to see some upside, right, levels that we have marked out today is going to be that 384 along with that 392. So what we like to see here, if we do want to see some upside, the best in my opinion is going to be that long off our 386 for continuation back towards the upside, or even the retest all the way back down and towards that 380, right? At least on the hourly time frame. If we're looking at the lower time frames today, another gap up into a key level of resistance. We're up about 2% here in the pre-market. So Our key levels is our previous day close 385 along with our previous day highs. We're a little bit farther away from our previous day highs, so long positions either offer previous day highs for continuation, or now you're going to be looking for some sort of opening drive play above your pre-market highs for a push towards the upside. But as for Tesla, as I mentioned, we do have this gap fill. So we're about to fill the gap back towards the upside, and then we're also going to create another gap that we have created. So it very much well could reject off this 392. And you can see this actually gap fill back towards the downside. So we have a gap down. Now we're about to fill it coming to market open, but that's just going to create another gap on the charts. So if we reject off this level, we can see this gap fill back down in towards that 384, which is, as I mentioned, previous day highs, multiple touches here as well. So this is what we have for Tesla coming in to market open here today. Just keep an eye out for your 392. That is going to be key on this name. And what we can do now is mark out that 5-minute opening range as well and use that to at least look for the general direction coming to market open within the first 30 minutes to an hour and a half. All right, now let's go on to Nvidia. So Nvidia is the next chart that we're looking at. As you can see here for Nvidia, really just bouncing off the low of the range, which in this case is our key level of support. You can see a little bit of buyers are stepping in off this general area. Now for Nvidia, let's go back onto the hourly time frame. We're going to have to reclaim back above our 178 if you do want to see any sort of continuation towards the upside. So this is what we have for Nvidia. Key levels that we do have marked out is just going to be this 178. Right now you can see nice kind of pop, a lot of consolidation yesterday, nice move in the overnight session. Now what we like to see is break above our 178 for any sort of continue push up and towards this 180.50. If we do want to see that break above, as I mentioned, that 178.50. This is really the long side scenario for Nvidia today. Another possible scenario, if it comes all the way back down in towards our previous day highs, you could be looking for that previous day high retest for continuation here as well. If we do see a rejection play here off that 178, we can see a push all the way back down in towards that previous day highs, in this case 176. So this is what we have for Nvidia coming to market open. As I mentioned, a lot of the semiconductors are moving up nicely here in the pre-market. Let's now go on to AMD. So AMD today, let's keep an eye out on this one for a push up in towards our next key level on the higher time frames, which happens to be our 220. So for AMD, as you can see right here, a lot of consolidation here on the daily time frame inside of a bigger consolidation. So now that we're breaking outside this 205 consolidation, let's see if we can get this push back up in towards our 220. So this is one of our higher time frame levels here. Let's go back on to the lower time frames. In this case, for AMD, key levels that we have marked out today is just going to be our previous day highs along with our Monday's highs. So as you can see here on the hourly time frame, multiple touches here. We have a touch here, another touch off our 208. What we like to see now on AMD is really the hold above our 208 for this push up and towards that 218 and above. So let's keep an eye out on AMD. This one's been showing a little bit more strength compared to the markets. Above our 208, hold above that 208, we can see a push up in towards that 218. So this is going to be one of my main watches coming into market open here. Let's keep an eye out on AMD above our previous day highs for continuation. Next level towards upside 215 along with that 218 on the higher time frames. As for Apple, a little bit more consolidation here. Key levels that it's going to have to break is above this 255. As you can see, we have multiple touches off this general area. If you do want to see some upside here above your 255 for continuation, a rejection off this level, we can see a push right back down in towards that 251 here and below. So this is what we have for Apple coming into market open. Let's go into Google and Microsoft. So Google and Microsoft have been a lot weaker compared to the overall markets. Right, a couple kind of AI themes dropping the markets towards the downside on these two tickers. But overall, right, with the Qs right at a key level support, Google, Microsoft, and a couple of these other names dropping, right? They're in a very good area here on the higher time frame. So for Google, this one recently broke underneath their key swing low. If we do want to see any sort of continuation higher, let's actually just kind of mark out this on the daily time frame. Right, so we have a couple key levels. We have our 297.50, and we also have this key level, which is our 293.91. If we do want to see some upside, we have to see the reclaim back above our 293 at a minimum for a push back up and towards this 297. If we reject, we're going to see that continue push towards the downside, right? Similar thing to Microsoft here. Key level that I have marked out is our 378. This one, a little bit of a bounce here in the pre-market. If we reject, we're just going to see that push right back down and towards that 372. If we can reclaim, then we can see a little bit of a move back up and towards that 382. For something like Microsoft on the weekly time frame, these ones are in a very good spot in my opinion, right? For Microsoft, right, specifically right around that 200 weekly moving average, higher lows, I like to see some buyers kind of step in off this general area, right? This, in my opinion, is a good buy for Microsoft. If you're interested in Microsoft long term, right, as you can see, this is basically all the way back up and towards our almost 2022 high, which was all the way back from July of 2022. As you can see, multiple touches, right? Use this as support. This was earlier in 2025, and then as it's coming back down, this is a really solid area for Microsoft, just risk to reward ratio wise, right? Anywhere around this like 370, 360 general area here on Microsoft for, right, a nice bounce kind of back towards the upside. Let's go into a few other tickers here now. As for Meta, another one that's kind of dropping into key levels of support here as well. So far, we are seeing some buyers off our key 588. If we do want to see some upside here now, it's going to have to reclaim back above our 612 for any sort of continuation. Another possible scenario, the bounce off our 588 for this pushback towards the upside is in play here as well. As for other levels that we can have marked out, previous day highs along with our Monday's lows. If we want to see other upside, right, either above our previous day highs for continuation. If it rejects off our previous day highs, we can see this push right back down in towards that previous day close here for Meta. As for everything else, right, Amazon still ranging in between key levels. So a lot of these names are kind of ranging here. The best names that do look good are some of the semiconductors, which I'll go on to the charts here in a second, AMD, and a few other tickers here as well. But if you guys do have any charts or any tickers, you guys can now drop them in the chat. If you guys are enjoying this so far, as I mentioned, appreciate if you guys drop a like. If you guys haven't joined the free daily watch list, that of course is in the description below as well. Okay, let's go on to Palantir. So Palantir was one of the names we're keeping an eye out for yesterday. We had this mini downtrend break, strong daily candle close. We mentioned we're going to see some upside before we see any sort of downside on Palantir. And we end up moving higher right off the bat, but you can see initial reaction kind of up into this like 260, 162, 163, and pretty big upper wick here on the 15-minute time frame. If you look in the 5-minute time frame, similar thing, huge upper wick, and we end up having that reversal all the way back towards the downside, and we had really a gap fill that we had created here as well. So for Palantir, another one where it's just kind of rejecting off key levels right off that 162 and right back in towards the middle of the range. So really not too much to talk about on this one. If you do want to still see continued upside above our 156 for this push back up and towards our 160, but in this case, we're just kind of consolidating. So middle of the range would have to see a push back up and towards that 162. Let's go into a few other tickers here. Let's go into a few semiconductors. Number one, a couple names that are moving up nicely here is like ARM. Intel's moving nicely here in the pre-market as well. But as you can see for Intel, this one's just forming a higher time frame base. We're kind of just consolidating here, and we're about to form kind of this downtrend break here on the weekly time frame. So as you can see for Intel, nice kind of continue push towards the upside, been basing basically all of 2026 so far. What we would like to see now is right on the weekly time frame, the break above our 48/50 for this continued pushback towards the upside. If you go into the daily chart, fairly similar thing here. You can just mark out this general area, right? Kind of mark out this mini downtrend here as well. What we want to see is now, right, the break of this trend line, hold above that level for, right, continuation towards the upside. Currently, we're just kind of ranging in between the 42.50 along with our 48.50. And then, of course, the middle of the range, what we have here is our 46. So this is what we have for Intel coming into market open here today. Let's just keep an eye out on our 46.50. If we do want to see some upside, break above our 46.50 for this push towards the highs, right? If we reject off this area, we're just going to see a push down in towards that 44.50. So this is what we have for Intel coming to market open. As for MU and SNDK, couple of the levels that we have, as you can see, MU pulling back here. As I mentioned, this one very similar to the Palantir setup that we had once we had that earnings all-time highs push. So MU, a little bit of a pullback here. So the next key level on MU is going to be all the way back down in towards our 380. So we have a mini daily gap along with this 380. So the bottom of the range in this case is going to be that 360. So if we go back onto MU, key levels, every single pop so far has been kind of shorted towards the downside. Key levels that we can have marked out is going to be that previous day highs, which we can drag this up into that Monday's lows. And then other levels that we can have marked out here as well is going to be that previous day lows. So we have our 404, and then we also have our 392. So if you do want to see some downside here on MU, potential previous day low rejection for this continued push towards the downside. So we can keep an eye out on MU today underneath our previous day lows for continuation towards the downside, down in towards our 380 and potentially that 372 here on the higher time frames. So we can keep an eye out on MU. If it reclaims back above, really not interested in this reversal trade, but it does have room back up and towards our 396 if we do reclaim back above that previous day lows. As for SNDK, this one, similar thing here, just kind of consolidating, pulling back just a little bit with, of course, MU here as well. We do have a couple gaps that we're most likely just going to fill towards the downside. So for SNDK, right, if we get that gap fill, we're just going to see that push back down in towards that 670. So that's what we have for SNDK here. As for the overall markets, yeah, a little bit of reaction. I'm not sure if we have some news here. I would have to check, but kind of rejecting off our highs, and now we're actually pushing all the way back down in towards this previous day highs here on the spine cues. As for a few other tickers here, let's go on to ARM. Key levels on ARM. Let's go back onto the daily chart. I haven't really marked out ARM in a while, but as you can see, kind of finding a base earlier in February, and now you can see we're kind of breaking up above a key level. So key levels here on ARM, or at least next levels towards the upside, all the way back up and towards our 156 and our 160 here on the higher time frame. So we had news here in the after hours, a nice kind of pop towards the upside. Other levels that we have marked out is going to be that 146, which is our after hours highs. And now we can just kind of mark out our pre-market highs as well, which happens to be our 152. So this is what we have for ARM coming to market open. If we do want to see some upside here on ARM, we need to see the break above our pre-market highs for continuation, or now in this case, we can be looking for that first pullback long for that continued pushback towards the upside here as well, just to up and towards that pre-market highs. As for some other tickers here, TSM, let's go into the higher time frames on this one. I actually do like TSM. So TSM is coming back to retest really the area that we broke out from, just kind of back into this general area of consolidation. So if we can see that nice break, we can see a nice pop back on TSM back towards the upside. So levels that I do have marked out on this name, and what we can have marked out, let's just kind of remove a few key levels. For TSM, some of the levels that we have marked out, number one is going to be this high right here, our 348. And then the other levels that we have marked out here is going to be that 356 here up into that 360. So for TSM coming to market open. Nice kind of pop the last few days. Semiconductor theme showing a little bit more strength. Above now our previous day highs hold. We can see a push back up and towards this 365 here on TSM. Right, if we're looking at this on the hourly time frame, we would like to see right kind of this downtrend right above our previous day highs, right, potential continuation up and towards this 356 here on TSM. Yeah, coming into market open here, we are actually just rejecting off key levels. So it does seem like we had this gap, pretty big gap, but now we're trying to push back towards the downside, only up about 0.8% here now on the Qs. But the key levels that we just have marked out on the Qs now is just going to be that that 588. So if we do want to see some upside coming to market open, right, bounce play here off our 588 for a push back up and towards that 591. Shorts were in play, but it was really off that 591 rejection, or of course the 594. But coming to market open, a little bit more neutral now, just because we're basing above our previous day high. So we'll keep an eye out on our 588 coming to market open. As for the SPY chart, similar thing here. What I have marked out is our 654. But we also do have right that previous day highs that we can mark out here as well, which will be that really that's 657. So we can just mark out this general area, and we can keep an eye out on our previous day highs here as well. So for today, right, fairly neutral, right? If we're looking at a past 2 days worth of price action, draw Monday's price action, Tuesday's price action. Today so far, kind of right inside the middle of the range. So I'd be a little bit more cautious coming to market open. The only names that look strong and are still holding up is Tesla. So we'll keep an eye out on Tesla coming to market open and a couple of the semiconductors. As you can see, the semis are still above our previous day highs here as well. So for Tesla, we'll keep an eye out on the reaction that we have off our 392. And then Nvidia, right, previous day highs. And of course, right, AMD, right, we'll keep an eye out on this 208. Peace talks with our following part. Yeah, I kind of figured with the overall markets, we're just going to go back and forth. As I mentioned, the longer the war goes on, right, we're going to have a bigger drop in the markets, but it's going to be flip-floppy, right? It's going to be like it's off, it's on. We kind of had that a few days ago with the Iran war news. So we had this nice pop, and then we had some more war news in the midday. And as you can see, we're just going to keep having right war news either midday or whenever we have these kind of pre-market pops and rejections. So that is something to keep in mind. Of course, that's the main thing moving forward, and that's kind of what the theme's been. So make sure if you do have any positions, right, or any setups that you do like, that's always going to take precedent, right? News is always going to be a lot more important than technicals in this very current market environment. So in this case, right, just keep an eye out on our previous day highs. Those are the levels that we have marked out. Yeah, besides that, as I mentioned, Tesla, I do like Tesla. This is the most bullish ticker here coming into market open, and a couple of the semiconductors as well. So we'll keep in mind really the levels that we have marked out, previous day highs along with our pre-market highs today. If you do want to see some upside, we'll still focus in here on Tesla. Yeah, besides that, that is going to be it for me today. I'm going to get ready for market open here now. If you guys did enjoy that, appreciate it if you guys drop a like and sub. If you guys haven't joined the free daily watch list, that is in the description below. Yeah, that being said, I'll see you guys all tomorrow. All right, take care, everyone. Peace.